Tell us.
So I was studying acting at an academy, and I was doing very serious plays, and I was like always crying. I was always cast as the crying girl. I was doing Three Sisters, and I had to cry every night as Irina, and it was like this 3-hour Chekhov play, and then I had, was casting these like independent films always like as the crying girl, and then I was like in this, video for Creed, and I was the crying girl.
What Creed video?
It was called What's This Life For?
Wow.
And I just was like so tired of crying. It
Exhausting.
was really hard, and it's great to know how to do it, but it was like exhausting me. And then
But you were killing it, like you were nailing it. Everybody, they're like, this is our girl, this is our
yeah,
crying
they were like,
girl.
this is our sad girl. And then my acting teacher actually said, I think you should go into comedy because you're accidentally funny. And meaning we were doing like a serious scene in class, and everybody started laughing. And he said, I think you should go to the Groundlings. And so then I went to the Groundlings. I learned how to write and perform comedy, and I was like, this is so great. You can write your own stuff. And then ironically, one of my first TV roles, I was cast as the crime motorcycle girl in Reno 911. So even in comedy, I was cast as
I've seen that.
Crying
That's
girl.
great. That's great. Luke Barnett.
Well,
Comedy. Like comedy.
well, I remember like the first couple of times I ever saw something that made me like laugh. When you laugh till you like literally can't stop crying. I just loved crying. But was probably either the Monty Python, Quest for the Holy Grail, or Dumb and Dumber. I was like 10 or 11 when I saw both of those, and those are the times that I just remember not being able to like physically stop crying. I was laughing so hard. And then there was kind of from that I went through a phase where I was kind of like he said, I was the person that was too young to be watching Saturday Night Live and late night talk shows, but it was kind of the generation with Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry and that group. I kind of became obsessed with Saturday Night Live at that point, and with like Conan had just come on, and everybody thought that he was amazing because he was coming into the time of Leno and stuff, and just kind of became obsessed. And it was probably in high school I started doing plays and stuff, but in plays I would never get cast as like the lead character. I'd get played, we did Arsenical Lace, and I'm cast as like Dr. Einstein, the like creepy 80-year-old like German doctor. And
We
kind
have
of like,
Germans here tonight.
and kind of like she said, I would always just like it'd be a serious thing, and people would end up kind of enjoying it from a perspective you probably weren't supposed to. And I think it was like right after high school, I was like, I have to move to LA. This is like what I have to do. And my parents were super supportive, and my mom actually passed away when I was 18, and the next year I moved out here, and I also did 2 years of the Groundlings, which is everybody up here is pretty
Raise your hand, everybody up here and out there, raise your hand if you studied with the Groundlings, or are currently studying with the Groundlings. Or in any kind of improv, studying
Second
improv
City.
anywhere. So we have a lot, Second City people, and Improv Olympics? Okay, so we have a lot of improv people. Great, Mindy Sterling?
Why comedy?
Why comedy? Well, I'm kind of a goofball, and my biological father was a comedian and a singer and an entertainer, so I was kind of raised around all of that. And I was shy growing up, and I was in theater though, because I thought, wow, I can play somebody else, I don't have to be myself. So that just sort of lent itself to obviously a lot of plays in school, and I was the ingenue many years ago, but I was always the kind of like the goofy ingenue. And
You were the ingenue with a quirk.
yes, I was an ingenue with a quirk, and so it was just who I am. I think it's just sort of a natural thing for me to go into comedy. And now I want to do more dramatic stuff, which is a difficult crossover because people have to give you that opportunity and to do that. But I do. I love performing. I love making people laugh. I love the art of theater. I love, my background. I'm an improv junkie. I was a member of the Groundlings for like 10 years, and I taught there, and I teach every now and then, but I crave improv. I mean, I'd much rather do that than sketch, or, not sketch, but scripted material, because I have to memorize lines, and I'm just getting too old to memorize lines. It's too hard.
But
So,
you memorize.
I do, I memorize, yes, I have to, well, you have to, but it's not that easy when you get older. And so I just love improv. And so it just was I think it was just in my nature. I'm just kind of a like I said, a goofy person. And I love laughing. I love laughing. I love watching stand-up. I love watching sketch. I love going on the internet. I just love things that make me laugh. And so that's what I do. I hopefully make other people laugh, so.
Yes, you do with these.
Thank you.
Kevin, I'm gonna tweak the question because Kevin is a writer, and so you, in your intro, Kev, I said you went from stand-up and performing, and then you made the transition to writing. So my customized question for you is, why did you want to go into stand-up?
Why did I want to go into stand-up?
Yeah, why did you want to go into comedy? I know why.
Well, first of all, I haven't fully committed to it yet.
Yeah.
But if I do make a career out of it, why did I go into comedy? Wait, what's the question? Why did I go into comedy? Why did I go into well, as you know, I have 3 older brothers. One of them ended up becoming a stand-up comedian. But when we were much younger, we used to do things, we called them games. We didn't know at the time, we were doing full-out improvs when I was like 5 years old. We had characters, recurring characters with storylines. We used to pretend that we were on The Tonight Show and do outtakes from The Tonight Show. We listened to comedy albums.
Kevin is the youngest of 4 brothers.
Yeah. So, I was being trained in comedy without really knowing it. Then my older brother, Bobby, became a stand-up comic, and he started in the mid-'70s. And I was in college at the time, so when I wasn't at school, I would hang out with him and go to the clubs with him, because what would be more fun for a
Would I
teenager?
know him?
No.
Oh.
Bobby Kelton. He's been on TV many times and everything.
Bobby Kelton's my favorite Bobby Kelton joke. He was on The Tonight Show many times, and you might remember this. You can Google it. Birthday cake, the only dessert that somebody spits all over and everyone wants to eat it. Not a good joke.
But so Bobby was doing stand-up, and so I would hang out with him, help him write his act, and then after all the comics did their sets, they would go out, hang out at the coffee shops in New York, and hang around. Well, his best friends at the time were Larry David, Alan Zweibel was there, Leno was in and out, and a lot of other very funny people that aren't quite as famous. And by hanging out with these people, I was getting a master's in comedy without even realizing it. So when I got my degree in business administration, and I said, well, I don't want to do that. So I decided to come out to LA, and most people went to Europe for a year after college. I said, I'm going to go to LA, try to make it as a writer out there, and when that doesn't work, I'll come back and get a real job. And 35 years later, so far so good.
And by the way, I would go in the 80s to the Improv to see Kevin perform, and Larry David was at the bar trying to pick up women and failing, and Jay Leno would come in on his motorcycle, and it was like a whole thing. Susie Deming! Why comedy?
Well, I found out I was adopted when I was 5, and I didn't want them to send me back. Like, quite literally, that's how I learned to relate to the world, because I called my parents Mr. and Mrs. Deming for about a month after that, because at 5, it just didn't make sense.
Oh my God.
So you're not my parents. Okay, so you're Mr. and Mrs. Deming, and thank you for letting me stay here. That's really cool. So if you go to the root of why comedy for me, it's how I relate to the world. Like it also comes from, you talk to other adopted kids, there's this whole, why did you abandon me? So the flip side of that is the comedy and tragedy mask. Let's let's be funny about that. Let's fill that hole with funny stuff. So going way back, that's why comedy for me. But I kind of have the same. You know, I went to serious theater school, and when I came out here, and I found the Groundlings, and I had Second City in Chicago, and I loved it. I really just loved the immediacy of it, and you didn't have to go deep. You didn't have to hug a bag of ice. You didn't have to like go deep. It was just there, and it was immediate. And you know, Mindy was one of my favorite teachers at the Groundlings. Like it really is. It's a joy to have that immediacy and that connection with your scene partner that doesn't have to do with honoring the text necessarily. So, you know, because I'm not about authority and stuff like that, because I was adopted.
And I keep wishing I were adopted. I keep Googling, who are my real my birth parents, please.
Wrong.
But comment on this, everybody, because my thesis is that when you can do comedy, write comedy, perform comedy, you let everybody else do the drama, because I feel like when you can be a comic actor and write comedy, you can do the drama. You can do the Tim Conlon.
Well, but again, and some of it is what you were saying, that they gotta let you do it, or that you have to fight. But you also have to put yourself in the way of things that you find interesting. You know what I mean? And I don't like hearing like, oh, I just want to do comedy. I just want to do that. You should be able to do something that interests you and ignites you. Steve Martin was like that. He would do really amazing, like The Spanish Prisoner with David Mamet. You do exceptional dramatic turns. You can do it. It's harder to do, it's harder to do the other ones because there's more at stake with comedy, because there's a result you actually have to produce, which is laughter. You know what I mean? It's
harder.
It's
well,
a little, yeah.
Colin Firth said recently in an interview about the new Woody Allen movie, what is it, Magic in the Moonlight or whatever. He said, I don't want to do comedy. It's too hard because of the precision. And I think dramatic actors have trouble doing comedy, but comic actors have no trouble doing drama. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I think, I don't know, there was a movie, and I don't remember, maybe you guys remember, there was some movie that was out a couple years ago, and you realized the whole cast, you know, in various different parts were all stand-ups. And I can't remember that, and I was just blown away by, and they weren't funny, they were just doing whatever was given to them. But somebody gave these people this opportunity to not go for jokes or not be, you know, crazy. And there are some wonderful, wonderful funny people that have been successful at being funny and comedic, and that can blow you away by, you know, something deeper. And it's just having somebody give you that opportunity to, you know, put yourself out there, or create it yourself, which is hard, but so I think comedy is much more difficult.
I also think it's such a, comedy has such an emphasis on timing, and there's something about it that for a lot of people that I know that are really funny, they're just naturally funny people. And like, that's not something, I mean, you can for sure learn comedy, but there's something about people that you meet and they're just like hilarious people that I don't think comes naturally to everybody. You know?
Yeah.
I think you can learn it, but I think.
Did you ever read The Talent Code?
No.
There's a book called The Talent Code.
I'll make a note.
And this guy was obsessed with hotbeds of talent throughout the world, right? So he would go, like, there's a place in Brazil, this village in Brazil that produces a disproportionate number of soccer players. Or there's another place that has a disproportionate number of violin players or gymnastics people or whatever. So this guy packs his bags, goes to these places, and studies what's going on with these children, because they're children when they become. And there's another, I believe there's 6 or 8 criteria that goes into genius talent. One of them is called ignition. There's 2 things I'm going to talk about now. One of them is called ignition, which means the kid is ignited around, the violin, the soccer ball, comedy, whatever it is, ignited to the point that I am not going to think of literally anything else but this thing. That needs to be in place because this kid needs to keep going back to this thing that he's going to fail at. In order for you to get good at something, you have to fall off the unicycle a bunch of times before you're okay. So unless you're ignited about it, you won't be able to do it. This village in Brazil had a tiny game that toddlers play. It's half the size of a soccer field, the ball is half the size, it's twice the weight, and they just siphon in these little kids, right? So then when the kid grows up, he becomes twice the size he was when he was an infant.
Wow.
The field opens up, the ball gets bigger but lighter, and now they're going to teach this kid soccer. So this kid knows inherently in his bones, and they go, well, he just has a talent for it. Two things, he was ignited around the thing. Two, it's part of who he was before he even realized it. So a lot of us on this panel, and a lot of you sitting there, were ignited at a young age. You would listen to a George Carlin record differently than your brother did. You would watch a television show differently than your parents did. You'd want to watch a commercial, but you didn't care about the thing they were selling. You cared about the funny thing that was going on there. And it just became a part of who you are. So then when you sat in your second city class and your teacher asked you to do something and it seemed like you just knew where the ball was, there may be elements of this talent code thing that are, yeah, you have to read this thing. It's such a badass.
It's called the talent pool.
The talent code.
The talent code, I'll email it to everybody. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So what I want to know, Susie, we'll start with you. How, after school, after studying, after making this commitment, I remember I told my grandma, Grandma, I'm going to be a writer. And she said, no kidding, I didn't know you could type. So after you made this commitment to do what you do, how did you jumpstart the machinery? How did you get your career in gear?
Oh God, I don't think my career is in gear. So I really don't. And I wandered a lot. I went to theater school. Then I went to Germany and I performed in Cats for 2 years.
Did you guys see her?
I would have been 2 years old, unfortunately. And then I took some time and I wandered in Europe. I got a Euro pass. I went to the Cannes Film Festival, slept on the beach, and did all kinds of weird stuff. I moved to LA. I worked for Hanna-Barbera. I started an internet startup company. I started an animation company, and then I went to the graphic. So and then all this other weird stuff I've done since
Like my class.
Yeah, like your class, and like being a casting director, and like creating. So I wish I had something.
But it's
wise to say,
always in the same phylum of creativity
yes, yeah.
and turning straw into gold and looking for opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. There was a James Gunn, who directed Guardian of the Galaxy, just did this interview, and he said that, people put a lot of stock in follow your dreams. You should really find what you're good at in the world and deliver it to the world. And I think I'm still on that path. It's all in the same. This destination is kind of in the right neighborhood. I'm not in the right neighborhood, but I haven't followed my dreams to be an actor, because I'm not really an actor. I act, but I don't.
But you enjoy all of this other stuff.
I feel
that's
sort
exciting.
But I'm in danger of being a dilettante. You know what that is? It's a jack of all trades, master of none.
No, I think.
But I kind of enjoy that.
You're a producer.
Yeah.
That's what a producer
Exactly. That's it.
Susan, you're a 7-Eleven. You've got stuff in every aisle.
Diversified.
I love
And it's
that.
way overpriced.
The
quality
Good.
is
You know what?
iffy,
But you know what? Yeah, you're worldwide.
So I hope that's interesting, and I'm of a certain age, so it's not like, I missed my opportunity. I'm still creating my opportunities in my mid-40s. Anomaly, I didn't strike it rich at 27 and become Julia Roberts, who's my same age, so I can't continue to compare myself against her, because she's not doing what I'm doing. She doesn't have as much cool stuff going on as I do.
Delete any numbers from your mindset, from your resume. Numbers are meaningless.
Absolutely.
Counting doesn't count.
Right.
How did you, we know that we had our first job together, but how did you get that job? Tell everybody.
Actually, I was doing stand-up at the Comedy Store, and at that time, the dating game was using a lot of comics. Everybody could get on. There was, So I did the dating game, and I went to the audition. I was very funny in the audition. I went on the show. I wasn't as funny on the show, but life went on. So a couple of months later, a friend of mine who worked on a lot of game shows asked me if I was interested in writing for a game show. I said, yeah. He said, well, someone I know is looking for a writer, and they wanted me to do it, and I'm too busy, so I'm going to recommend you. I said, great. So I go to this meeting, and the guy sitting across the desk from me says, you look really familiar to me. So we start playing that game, do you go to the comedy store? And we weren't clicking, and finally he said, did you ever do the dating game? And I said, yeah. He said, I was producing that, and I remember your audition. You were really funny.
Wow.
And
who was that? Was that Lou Tedesco?
No. This was for the show Crosswits. And he said, unfortunately, we already filled the job that you came in for, but I know another show that needs somebody, and they recommended me to the people that ended up hiring us. So that's how
Sandy Frank Productions, remember?
Yeah, but it was
like
Lou
Dracula.
and, what was it, Peggy? Yeah, they were the people
Oh,
that
yeah.
hired us, yeah.
So, the theme that we're gonna see revisited here a lot is just say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Just say yes. And even if you don't feel qualified, you'll figure it out. But Mindy?
I say a lot of yeses for very little pay, some which is no pay, but I sort of look at it like I will, who's doing it? Do I have to travel? Who's behind the project? So there's a lot of great stuff out there that I feel that I get to do because maybe the bigger picture is putting out their notices for bigger stars and da, da, da. So I get to do smaller things that give me an opportunity to grow and expand and learn. And like I'm going this weekend to Kansas to do a short.
Oh,
And it's very, very small, very low budget, but I know the woman that is directing it and wrote it, and she's a writer, and I did something else for her, and I love her, and she's wonderful, and I get really jazzed and excited when women are the ones that are, producing or directing or writing. And so, I thought, well, I got nothing else to do. Let's go. And I really love it. So, if you love the project, then you just do it. I mean, I want to act. I don't want to sit around and shop all the time, though I do a lot of that. But bargain shopping, I'm a Jew.
So after Where's Charlie, that starred Mindy and me, what was your first professional?
I think it was a commercial. I think it was a Toyota commercial, and where I had to drive, and it was a stick shift, and I didn't know how to drive a stick shift, so that was a nightmare. So I think I first had started in commercials before I landed any television. I think my first television thing was a show called, you probably will not remember, everyone, Perfect Strangers.
Oh,
well, I know you would.
Yeah.
Martha Baker.
Yes, so I had, I think one line, I was the hostess, and I think I had how many in the party, or something very, very small. Nightmare. It was a nightmare job. It was horrible. The director was so horrible, and very abusive, and but you get through it, and it was like, oh my God, please, I hope they're not all like this. And but I think that was like my first professional job, my first professional commercial. So, it went from there.
Luke?
My first real, I guess the job that kind of got me into the union and whatnot was this movie, Mama's Boy. It was John Heder and Diane Keaton. It was a situation where they'd shot the whole movie, and then they, 6 months later, they decided they needed to do reshoots, and they were going to do this opening montage where it was John Heder's character kind of growing up. So it was going to show him at like 5 years old, and then it was going to show him at 16, and it was going to show him at 23. And I was cast in the scene where, and the situation was like, come to set on a Tuesday, this thing shoots on Thursday, you're gonna, audition with the director. And so I got there, it was this skateboard park in Sherman Oaks, and this situation was basically John Heater's character was going to be on roller skates at this skateboard park trying to impress this girl, and she was really into it, and then all of a sudden her like badass boyfriend comes up, this guy, and says like 3 lines and then makes out with the girl. It was going to be awesome. So I got to this audition, flipped up my skateboard, said the 3 lines. 3 hours later, I booked this movie. I'd been out here for like 3 years maybe, and it was like, holy shit, I just booked this Diane Keaton movie.
After 3 years.
Wow.
Just shot it. It was like the best day of my life. Told everybody.
Oh, no.
My hometown paper does like a
Oh,
page thing
no.
about like the Luke Barnett's going to appear in this movie Mama's Boy with Diane Keaton. It's like this biggest thing in
Yes.
the world. No one tells me anything. The movie comes out. You go see the movie, and they turned these 3 scenes into like a montage to music. So like you still barely see me, but it's just like a glorified extra. Like there's no dialogue. You just kind of see me in the background, kiss the girl, and it was like that moment of like everyone's expecting. You know, it was still first job, fun story, got me into the union.
And it taught
Ruined
you
my life.
Yes.
resilience. Resilience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. And I wonder, you're from the Midwest, right?
Yes.
So nobody is from LA really. So you
Generally.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was born here.
That's one.
I modeled for the bear on the flag. How did you show up in LA and get your start?
So I moved here when I was 21, and then I went to a 2-year acting school. My first job was in the Creed video, the Creed
Yeah.
video.
Right.
And I got that from, I was bartending at a little bar called Goldfinger, and the DJ, John Ojaka, was, during the day he worked with a casting director. He actually went on to marry Lisa Marie Presley.
Oh my God.
And he was like, oh, we was casting tomorrow, you should come in. And I was up till 3, and then the casting was like very early in the morning. So I just wore the same thing I slept in, which was a slip dress, and like no makeup. And they were like, can you cry on
Can I cry?
You know what you're talking to?
And I just started crying because I was like so sleep deprived, and like I'd been bartending all night, and I just like cried. And then I got the job, and I wore a slip dress in the video.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. That's great. Tim, there's a theme developing here. I'm gonna synopsize it. Tim. So, Canada, a faraway land. Toronto, foreigner.
Sure.
Suddenly you're in LA.
Right.
And now you're famous. How did that happen?
Well, Lisa. It is Lisa. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I was living in Toronto, and I was at the Montreal Comedy Festival, though not performing. And I met an agent, and he said, "If you're ever in Los Angeles, we'd love to represent you. Pilot season is coming up, so think about that." So I moved to Los Angeles because I'm a crazy person. And I'm like, oh, that's great. So what I didn't understand was, he was interested in representing me. The agency was not. So I was like, well, he says, well, I'll hip pocket you. I go, what does that mean? He says, that means I'll represent you and send you out on stuff, and we'll see what happens. I go, great. So he sends me out on one audition, and they want to see me again. So I go in again. Send me in another one, I go in again. And now they want to test me for the network. This is my first audition. And I go, okay, is that good? Yes, okay. So we did the thing, and I'm like, this seems to be going really quickly. And I signed the thing, and then the agency at the time when the deal was about to be made said, we'd love to hire you. We'd love to work with you. We'd love to be your representative now that I'm about ready to book this job. And I said, well, this is really easy. I've been here a couple of weeks. And so I do it. I test for the network, and I don't get it. And I go, well, what does that mean? Like, do we go back? Like, how does this work? And they go, no, let's try something else. I go, this is awful. This is terrible. I go, what about the thing I signed? So then they said, well, we'll send you on another one. And then I got that one. I go, well, that's a relief. So I was here for 6 weeks and I booked a television pilot.
Wow.
And I got in the union. And I didn't realize how fast that was. I thought I was kind of dogging it because I fucked up the earlier audition. That I'd been here for a week. And I'm like, Jesus, they're really good. I go, but they're not really gonna drop me because they're not even really representing me. So then I did the thing and I signed with them and I got into the union and it was a dramatic series called The Wyatts. And they didn't pick it up and I was crestfallen and heartbroken. But it was, I had my union card and I had a couple of bucks in the bank and my agency, I have an agency, and everybody, I didn't realize that even if the thing didn't go, that a bunch of people knew who you were now, and you could go out and they would, you could audition for other things, and you could sort of be in the scrum of this thing at a relatively young age. And I'm like, oh, I live here now. Like I'm here now doing this, and it was really, I didn't understand how stressful that was going to be, or how quickly that was going to, how that made, because it doesn't usually go that way. So that was my first job.
That's exciting.
It's really exciting, and it was really, it was scary, but the interesting thing I learned then was, if your friends aren't doing the super scary thing, don't try to get some kind of support from them right now.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear how fucking nervous you are
Yeah.
for the big network job you're testing for. You've been here 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't want to hear anything like that. And they don't but it's also just, it's scary because it's unexpected. We all fear the
Yeah.
unexpected. We all fear the unknown.
Yeah, and it's be careful what you wish for. This is what you moved from Canada.
Yeah, and the
to
first
do,
thing not
and
going
it's
was
happened.
devastating. I thought, am I out of business here? What's going to happen? You know?
So the recurring theme is you leave your room, you leave your home, you go, you put it out there, you
Hero
take the
journey.
risk, you have the chutzpah, the spunk,
Mhm.
and the idealism and the confidence that it's going to go well. It's a coin toss, and you are betting on yourself. And it isn't like Kevin worked in a bank before we worked on Face the Music. You were a bank teller.
Yeah, and I used to go upstairs during the lunch breaks and I was writing stand-up
Yeah.
jokes for other, and they thought I was out of my mind.
Yeah.
The other tellers thought, I told them, well, I'm gonna sell comedy, I'm gonna be a comedy writer.
Yeah.
They thought I was nuts.
So you're leaving the security of being a bank teller to
There
do
was no
something.
security.
The
It was Security Pacific, so.
Oh my God, the up-and-comer bank teller.
Yeah.
So it's taking that risk. It's putting that faith in yourself.
Okay, and I want to build on
Yes,
something that Tim
please.
said, which is the hip pocket thing. That
Yeah.
happened to me too, except for me, this happened to me 7 years into my career. I had worked on, I got into becoming a sketch comedy writer, and I got a reputation, and I worked on literally every knockoff of Saturday Night Live that existed. And then I worked on Saturday Night Live, and then I worked on some more knockoffs. And so I was working regularly and making good money. I was a television writer, but I wanted to get into sitcoms. And none of my agents could sell me into sitcoms. And they kept saying, no, it's just, we can't sell you there. And I knew I could do it. And finally, I got so frustrated with the agents that were representing me that I decided I had to leave. But I couldn't get someone to represent me who wanted to sell me in sitcoms until an assistant from William Morris, someone who had been on the desk of my agent.
Right.
He got a job as a junior agent at a small boutique
Right.
agency, Andy Patman. And he
Who was
said,
my agent? Yeah.
and he said, I'm not allowed to sign people, but I will hip pocket you. And he got me my first sitcom writing job. And then, of course, they were so,
We can't wait to sign
those
you.
papers came so quick.
Boy, are they fast.
Yeah.
And they got the sticky thing. They should you know exactly where to sign.
Yeah.
You don't
And
want
the head of
to.
the agency is all of a sudden calling and he's my best friend. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you get that bottle of Zambuca we sent over?
And this is how incestuous everything is. Andy Patman was my agent, and he worked at an agency called the Artist Agency, where a woman named Lauren Seraphan worked, who was an assistant to one of the agents. We ended up writing a book together, and Lauren is Tim's beloved girlfriend and life partner.
Weird.
I know, right?
Yes.
6 Degrees of Andy Patman, right? So, I'm going to skip to number 6. We're gonna get your POV on this. What do you feel for all the kids, for the Film Academy kids and my kids, what are the best and worst things about working in this industry? I'll start by saying what I think the best thing is. It's meeting people like you. You meet the most amazing people that you would never meet. I'm not saying the people who work at Nordstrom aren't fantastic, but the people that I have met, the lifelong friends that I have made, and that means all of you, all of you, the people that I get to know from doing what I do it's priceless. It's the greatest gift. So, Suze, what about you? Best and worst things about this wacky industry?
Well, I concur that it's the people, and it's really finding the community, and LA is a very, very small town. Like, it really is. As huge as it is, it's very small, and we do sort of take care of our own in sort of a weird way. The best thing for me is that it feeds that hole that I need to have fed, and it also pays me enough that I can live, so I count myself among the luckiest humans on the planet, even though I'm not super rich, I'm not super famous. I get to make money where my heart is. The worst part of it is my inability to sort of be happy with that, because this is a bad time because I'm in my post-Emmy, I haven't done a goddamn thing. Hangover, you know, because people I went to school with won Emmys a couple days ago, and then you know, CBS fired me and everybody else from the Arsenio Hall show last year, you know, so it's like, and I have to just pick myself up and start all over again, you know, and so I think that's the worst thing, and it gets harder as you get older, but I'm still doing it.
And you were adopted.
And I was adopted. They could still send me back, so I'm super happy. Good.
Remember when we talked about your greatest asset is your biggest liability? We did a lot we do a lot of think like a shrink work in this class, and if you think about it, and our guests can think about this too, when you think about your greatest asset is also your biggest liability, and that's Susie's. Being adopted, her greatest asset and her biggest liability.
Superpower.
Yeah. Hi, Simona. Kev, what do you think? What's the best and the worst? And don't talk about the gorgeous redheaded vixen. We got that.
Well, there are blondes. I don't know what's the best and the worst. I mean, it's all I know, frankly. And I don't think this industry is any better or any worse than other industries.
But what do you love about it, and what bugs?
Well, first of all, when I was working, I don't work so much anymore, but when I was working, it paid very well, and it allowed me a lifestyle that you know is very comfortable. And I too consider myself to have hit the jackpot, because I had this very narrow gift from my upbringing, which is the capacity to, one, write a first draft of a sitcom, and two, sit around a conference table and make other people laugh. And if you think about it, if I had been born in another country, aside from Canada, if I had been born in another country, or if I had been born, you know, 50 years earlier, you know, that would have had me out in the fields pushing a plow.
Yeah.
It was only because I was born at a specific time, second half of the 20th century in New York, you know.
That's very insightful.
And so it allowed that little gift that, if it's a gift that I have,
and TV had been invented.
And TV had been invented. And so, you know, I can't imagine how my life would have worked out if I hadn't taken the shot to go into this. But it did work out. I'm very happy it did. You know, I enjoy the creativity. I mean, what I do at UCLA now is like being a showrunner without a show, and I like it more. Because frankly, I don't have to deal with actors, I don't have to deal with networks, I just deal with wrighters. And even though I get paid nothing for it, as you know, it's actually a lot more fun.
I get a lot of money.
So you've been doing it a little bit.
But I've been doing this for 19 years.
And I'm sure you've got a better
And I love
actors.
I've gotten a lot of raises.
Stick with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Mindy?
Well, let's see, definitely some of the worst, which is exactly where I'll go first, I believe are the auditions. And what I mean by that is getting so worked up to go in there for 3 minutes and give them whatever you can, and at the same time your mind is constantly second-guessing everything that you do and listening to the other people audition before you, and oh my God, I think I'm going to change it now. That sounded great. And so, working against all of those factors drive you nuts, and then not getting the stuff that you really wanted, So that's really not the rejection is you're gonna go on more auditions than you'll ever work. So the rejection is really, really tough. And I think that the great thing is, like what Susan and Lisa said, the people that it's like a family, the people that I've met and people that make me laugh and people that I can laugh with and the actors and they're just, and people behind the scenes, everybody is so creative and so genuine and so passionate about what they do. And I love that, and I gravitate to those kind of people and whatever it is that they do. And, you're all there to put and make a show happen, or to, it just works as this nice family unit. I was not adopted, but my son was, so now I'm very worried about him.
You should find her and take care of him.
I thought he was fine
him a
for
little
19
guy.
years, but apparently he has some
He needs it now.
issues.
If he starts calling you Mrs. Sterling.
Mrs. Sterling.
Hysterical.
So I think it's like, my God, it's the joy of being with people that love what they're doing. To me, that excites and ignites me, and that I get to be creative with them. That's a blessing, and I too am incredibly blessed and lucky every day of my life that I am working. I don't have a mansion, though some kids think I do.
But you live at the beach.
I live at the beach, but I'm in control. And I live very moderately. I'm very, very low maintenance and stuff. But I really love my life, and I am so grateful that I'm one of the small percentage of actors that get to work, as an actor for a living. And I don't have to have another job, because I did that when I first came out here, and it was hard. So, but you had to make money. So that's what I do.
Luke?
Yeah, I'd kind of piggyback on that for the worst, the things that are the worst about it is just, at least, well, not just from acting, from writing, from everything else, so much of it is not in our control. I remember I've been out here for a few years, and a friend of mine was working as a casting associate, and there was a week that he was working for Risa Brahman Garcia, and she needed a reader for the auditions. And so I came and just volunteered for 2 weeks and was the reader in these auditions. And, you just see that so much of it has nothing to do with that person's performance. You had 20 guys out of 30 that gave incredible reads, and just it came down to this guy wasn't tan enough, or it really is, it can come down to the silliest stuff where you're just thinking to yourself, really, they couldn't just dye that guy's hair if they think he's the best? It's $20, and they're just no, let's go with the redhead. Blows your mind. And so that sort of constant rejection and knowing that is just, it's tough, The best part about it, along with the people stuff, it's just that, to me, there's sort of an energy with this whole city that's amazing, of people who have moved here knowing no one to pursue something, whether that's acting or writing or dancing, or they want to start a smoothie shop, whatever. There's something kind of amazing about being surrounded by people that have all moved here for a reason to pursue this crazy dream. And it's really fun. When you're working, I don't know if you remember this because we were on Wigs, but I worked with you on Funny or Die's Easter thing 2 years ago.
Oh my God!
And
were you
I was one of the
people on the table?
disciples, yeah, but we were all in wigs and beards, and we did this
What's it called so they can look at it?
It was the Last Supper, I guess? That's the
Was
Bible.
it based on the Last Supper?
Yeah.
I
Last Supper?
I think it's called the Last Supper, but it was, we just, this whole day, when you work, in that world, it's just like fun. Like I remember growing up and being like, I'd see a war movie and I want to be a Navy SEAL, or I'd see something and I want to be a doctor, and this is like a world that we can just like play, and like I played.
Be all of that.
I played Jesus and John Wilkes Booth last year.
So great. Wonderful.
Well, I think the best thing is, what I love about it is being able to make art with people that's going to last forever, because I moved a lot as a kid, and so I learned really young that everything's temporary, and I love now that I get to like meet great people and make something with them that's going to live, you know, forever. I don't really want to have kids, but I feel like art is my kids, so I feel like I have like a lot of kids with a lot of people. It's great. And that means a lot to me. And then also just like the sense of community. Like one of my best friends is also my neighbor. We share a duplex, Drew Drogi. And
Oh
we
my
have, like,
God.
a blast every day.
I love your
He
Jogi.
comes home and vents about stuff on the porch, and it's just like a hilarious comedy show every day. And
How
I don't know, I love it. But also, you know, I wouldn't say it's the worst part, but a big challenge is that it's obviously completely unstable. And so, you know, when things are great, they're really great, and then there are the in-between times. And you have to give yourself, for me, what helps me is giving myself some kind of a structure. I have daily structure no matter what's happening. Like I meditate every day, I exercise, I have my foods I eat, and that just makes me feel safe and structured within an unstructured world and landscape. And it's also, you know, financially unstable. So it's great to have a source of income, if possible, that is not coming from show business. So show business money can just be a perk, you know, perk money, ideally. Thank you.
That was excellent. Get a 10 for that. 10.
Okay, the best and worst, and there's another question that's a two-parter, and so I was thinking about this, and it reminded me of my two favorite stories about show business. So I'm going to tell you those two favorite stories, and then we're going to put those together, and we're going to come to the answer to this question. The first story is this, and now if you've heard these stories before, I'm tightening these up again for the writing class. First story goes like this. Prince, you know Prince, the singer, My Name is Prince, his royal purpleness, is in his home in Paisley Park in Minnesota. He calls Kevin Smith, the filmmaker, to come to his house because he's crazy and he just flies people in and does crazy shit because he's Prince, right? So Kevin Smith goes, holy shit, yes, Prince, I'll be right there. Ticket, first class limo, he's now sitting there. Now he's waiting for Prince to tell him what the fuck he's doing there, right? Prince is in the living room with a bunch of people, and Prince is reading the Bible and talking about the Bible to these people for 2 days. Well, Kevin Smith waits to figure out what this meeting is about. So Kevin Smith finally, and he says, I gotta go, man, I gotta leave. Prince goes, no, hold on, we're gonna do something, it's gonna be great, trust me. So he goes back, more Bible, more crazy, more blah, blah, blah. Finally, Prince comes in, Kevin Smith is there, Prince's team is there, he says, okay, here's what I need. We need an elephant, and we're gonna put the elephant in the backyard. I'm gonna get on the elephant, and I'm gonna read this thing. Kevin Smith is gonna film it. And we gotta do this now. Now, this is February in Minnesota at Prince's house. And he wants an elephant, a live elephant, in the backyard fucking now, okay? So everybody in Prince's life is now saying, we can't do that. This is a private residence. This is February. This is Minnesota. This is an elephant. There's a lot of reasons why we can't do this. Prince goes into a rage. He flips out. Can you imagine the screaming? Can you imagine the shuffling? Can you imagine the pouting coming out of Prince?
Yes.
I want a fucking elephant, and I want it now. So everybody in Prince's staff has to kind of start looking busy now, right? So they get on the phone, and they just start calling around Minnesota. Lo and behold, an elephant. Some guy has an elephant. The circus was in town. They're waiting to hook up with their show or something like that. Someone goes, what do you need? And the guy goes, do you have a truck for this elephant? Can you bring this elephant to Prince's house? We're going to put him in the backyard. Prince is going to get on top of him. Kevin Smith's going to film it. Can you do that? The guy goes, it'll be like $5,000 or something. He goes, sure, come on over. So they do it. Now, Prince is on the backyard on an elephant, reading the crazy thing. Kevin Smith films it. They take the film, they develop it, they put music under it. Prince takes it, puts it in the vault, locks it up, it's never seen again. That's story number one. Story number two is completely unrelated. It goes like this. Jerry Weintraub, one of the greatest film producers of our time, produced The Karate Kid, all the Ocean's movies, producing Ocean's 13, okay? Now Ocean's 13 has George Clooney, Brad Pitt, everybody, I'm in it! That's how many people are in this fucking thing. Everybody is in it. This is an epically scoped, worldwide tentpole for Warner Brothers. Jerry Weintraub's at his desk, he sees an invoice for bottled water that seems a little hot. So what does he do? Now this is a titan of the industry. There's a phone number at the top. Jerry Weintraub gets on the phone to the bottled water guy. What are you trying to screw me? What's going on? He goes, it's Warner Brothers, and it goes like this. You have to buy the bottled water from Warner Brothers like you're buying coffee at the airport. They will jack it up 700%, and you have to do it. So Jerry Weintraub, this man put Elvis on the stage. This man put Frank Sinatra on the stage. This man produced epic motion pictures to say, listen to me, you son of a bitch. I got 6 drivers on this shoot. We're going to go to Costco. We're going to fill it full of bottled water, and we're going to bring it back, and you can go fuck yourself, or you can give me a decent rate. What happens within an hour? The water shows up with an adjusted invoice. That's story number 2. So my point to you is this. Whatever your elephant is in the backyard, and you sitting on it with the dopey thing reading it, whatever that thing is to you, go get it. Like, scream and yell and make a tantrum and stay in it, because it's going to happen. But while you're doing that, make sure the bottled water guy is handling his end of things. So manage the details of your creative life while you go after this super crazy thing, because it's going to work out. It's going to happen. That elephant's going to show up. So make sure you say to the bottled water guy, dude, we got an elephant coming. Can you just handle this, please? Because most of the creative decisions you're going to have in your life, nobody cares about the elephant. That thing, that's yours. That thing, just work towards that objective. But that's the great part. That's the part that we all love. We all want to be on the back of the elephant and the thing and do whatever. We all want to, it's process and product. You're either fishing or you're fixing the net. So the part about fixing the net is making sure that you manage the detail of your life so you don't get taken advantage of. That's what I would say. That's what I would say.
Wow.
That's right.
That was fantastic.
That makes a lot of sense.
Wow.
Just say it out loud like that.
That
Great
was,
performance, too.
Thank you so
that
much.
was fantastic. We'll let you know.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you know what Jerry Weintraub sounds like, that sounds a lot like him.
We're looking for someone with
Yeah,
red
sorry.
hair.
Red hair. Yeah, you do the red hair. Yeah.
Let's, on that note, let's take a very quick break. Try and come back in 7 minutes, if you can use the bathroom that quickly, or whatever. And
it changed how I organize, how I streamline information, because you have to do things at certain times of the day. Those are hard target, appointments you have. But everything else has to do with your energy level. If you want to sit down at 3 o'clock and type something meticulously, but your energy is too big, that's not effective for the work that you need to do. You have to plan your activities relative to when you are at your optimum to perform that. If your energy is low but you can make lists, that's when you should be making lists. When your energy is at its highest, that is when you should be engaged in activities that you can be your most effective at. There's lots for you to do. We can complain about what's not getting done in our lives, But the truth of the matter is, what you have to do, what you are responsible for today, you barely have enough time to do. So you manage those minutes like you would manage your money, because it is. And when you can feel like when you go into a meeting, an important meeting, and you walk in there and you feel like you've arrived from the future, because you're so well planned and there's so little friction in your life and you're not being pulled in too many directions, that's when you know your life is over.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I wish I could do that.
Mm-mm.
David Allen, getting things done.
Not there.
I do agree with this one on the energy. You know, like, because I can only write in the morning, and you need to, you know, it helps to find out when you can be the most creative. I'm a morning writer, and so most days I write at least one, generally 2 hours. And I find that you can accomplish anything that you need to putting that amount of time in. Because if you just do 1 or 2 hours, you know, the rest of the day your mind is still writing while you do all your other stuff. And then you return to that project the next day and you add in all of those new thoughts, and it's still going, you know, but every day looks different. I might have a show at night, you know, stand-up show, I might have a story show, I might be doing a college, you know, I've done several web series, I've done, you know, storytelling out, so it's like whatever I'm working on, and then if I'm writing with someone, when are they available? But Maria Bamford and I just wrote our recent web series, you know, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours max a day.
But you work every day.
I do work every day.
You work every day.
And, but, yeah, when I was writing on staff, like on a TV show, we had to stay until the showrunner let us go home. And I found that, you know, after a certain hour, nobody was even productive. They're just, you know, spewing out different things to say. So I'm really a believer, and I've heard Jill Soloway runs her shows, like everyone goes home for dinner or whatever. They're only there at certain. And I just believe, yeah, like use your time wisely. But also as a performer, I have to do certain things to have energy in my show. Like I have to exercise, I have to meditate, I have to eat the right foods, I need a nap.
You have to eat at the right time as well, right? You can't be eating too close to the showtime.
I eat to do the whole thing, and the coffee at the right time, and
Oh,
so it's like I gotta hit all my marks that day as a performer, you know, and as a writer. So then it looks.
What happens if you don't? What happens if something is off and then you have to go on stage?
Well, I mean, you know, accidents happen. Like sometimes I've been flying somewhere, for instance, and a flight was delayed, and I got into like Chicago to headline late and had to wear my airport clothes and hadn't had dinner and stuff like that. But you still, you know, the show goes on. You still go out and do a show,
But the stress of it, you know,
yeah, it's not going to be your best, you know, show.
So it's about routine, it's about habituated behavior and ritual.
Yeah, I'm a very ritualistic person, and I just do what works. Like if something worked for me, I just keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. I very seldom get bored with it. I'll eat the same food every day, I'll write at the same place, I'll, you know, whatever, as long as it keeps working.
Yeah, Aristotle said the art is in the routine. Luke, how many hours a day and days a week do you?
Too many. I mean,
Yeah.
probably an unhealthy amount. I mean, like really, Emily would, her cousin would probably have me about half the time if it was ideal than I do right now. But I tend to be the most productive when I'm, and this is definitely not for everybody, when I'm juggling things and when like I've got deadlines and when I have a lot going on. And when I started like writing and producing on top of acting, I became a more productive actor for some reason. It felt like when I had so many, like don't get me wrong, I know when I'm overloaded, I know when it's too much, and I should have one thing at a time, but for the most part, I find that when I'm working on a few different things at the same time and I'm almost stressed out, I tend to be the most productive. Whereas when I just have like one thing, it's very easy for me to get lazy. I'm the person that like, I didn't own a video game system from the time I was like 20 until last Christmas, because I'm the type of person that like will play like FIFA soccer at 10 p.m. and then it's like 6 in the morning, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? So like, I have to have like so much going on that like the world does not allow me to play Pika soccer.
But let me ask you this, do you work on everything at once, or do you allocate
No, I definitely allocate.
8 a.m. to 10 a.m. for this
It's
project?
probably not quite that structured,
Okay.
but it is definitely like, I'll look at this week and I'll say like, I've got to have this, like right now we're doing like a Game of Thrones sketch, and so I know when I have to have it finished by, and I'll say like, these 3 mornings this week, I'm going to like commit to that, you know, and then the other stuff as it comes, and then somebody will like, and then I'll get an audition that like fucks everything up, but, yeah.
But do you write things down, do you have lists, or do you
Yeah,
have a calendar?
I'm anal about lists.
Okay.
I love lists, and I love
lists.
handwriting lists as well.
Me too. Love done lists. Mindy?
Well, I don't really do a whole lot. I'm not a writer, so I don't enjoy that process. I have a dog, I have a child.
I love how the dog comes first.
Dog. Pretty much, yes, right now. So if I don't have an audition, if I don't have a meeting, if I don't have, if I'm not right, you know, I mean, I'll get together and if somebody wants me to do something with them, whether it be an improv pilot or I'll collaborate with something. But I don't really have a lot of structure in my life right now. And I think once my son goes to school, he's going to go to Musicians Institute, then things will be a little different for me. But I don't, you know, I mean, if my structure is, I enjoy right now watching Dr. Phil at 3. I kind of am, I'm enjoying my summer, and then when it comes, then when the auditions start to come and work or whatever, then you get a little crazier.
Are there seasons for auditions, or
Yes.
things speed up?
Yes, things are picking up. I
Uh-huh.
think I tend to work more like October, November, December, which is great, you know, right before the end of the year. But between, I would say, May and August, it's kind of dead. So instead of, and I worry a lot. I worry I will never work again.
Do you schedule the worry, or do you?
It pretty much schedules me.
Does it schedule?
And so right now, I've just taken, Mindy, just enjoy the summer, because as my son says to me, Mom, you are going to work again. So I just do. And
But meanwhile, you did the Falcon, that was rehearsal.
I do, and I'll do
performances.
things. I do
And you
plays.
did
I'll
the
do
snapshots, and that was rehearsal.
So that, yeah, rehearsals. So I
Yeah.
will do things like that, but it's not like, you know, I get up and I write. I'm not a writer. I just don't enjoy that process, like I said. But I do little things, fun things for me.
Cav?
Pass.
You can get in the time machine and go back to 1990 and talk about.
That's when I had a
Yeah.
schedule. The truth of the matter is, not that Lisa could be mistaken about anything, but I probably am the one person on this panel that falls into a slightly different lifestyle. I'm somewhere between a stay-at-home dad and semi-retired, so I'm not as dedicated to it as I used to
But when
be.
you were working, tell everybody what I think the kids would like to hear what a typical day in the life of a sitcom writer is, and like what were your hours and.
Yeah, when you're working on staff, as Melinda said, by the way, I just want to say, I also agree with you, Melinda, that 1 or 2 hours a day, if you just dedicate that to writing, you can get a lot done. It doesn't have to be 7 or 5 hours or anything. But when you're working on staff, as also Melinda mentioned, very long hours, you know, you might be lucky enough to start it as late as 10 a.m., sometimes a little earlier. But they own you, and on the shows that I worked on, we were there until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, several days a week. Not all of that is intense working. A lot of it is goofing off and ordering big meals and everything. But you did live that structure. And the other thing about being on staff is you have to be really good at multitasking. I was good at multitasking before the word multitasking was in the lexicon. Because you're working on 6 scripts at one time. There's the script that's in production that week. There's the script that's going to table next week. There's the script that's going to table in 2 weeks that everybody's punching up. Then there's your first drafts. Then you're helping other people break stories for their first drafts. And frankly, it took a lot of mental dexterity to keep it all together. I don't know that I could still work at that same intensity that I did back then. But when I was between staff jobs, you should always be writing, and I never had to make time to write. I had to make time to get away from writing. Because if I was working on something, I just wanted to do that. And I would spend 10, 12, 14 hours working on my screenplay every day, and the day would just fly by, and it wasn't...
Yeah, that's what Joseph Campbell said is in your bliss. We work and you're in a zone, and there is no time.
Yeah, you're in the zone. And so, like, a lot of, I read about writers who procrastinate and they want to go pay their bills. I had to force myself to do that other stuff because I would let that go just because all I wanted to do was write.
Now, can you, because we've been working on sketches, can you just talk for a minute about SNL and the number of sketches and how prolific you had to be and the material that you were required to generate in a week?
Yeah, I thought sketch writing was the toughest writing I ever did. And I think television sketch writing, if you're doing it well, it's the toughest job in terms of comedy writing because the volume of material you have to turn out and to do sketch well, if you're trying to write, come up with really creative sketches, it's really draining. Great ideas are hard to come by. On SNL, we were responsible for 2 to 3 sketches a week individually. If you were co-writing with somebody, then you doubled that. And yeah, the hours, you've all heard these stories. We started Monday mid-afternoon, and we worked around the clock for the next 3 days to write the show. And it was very intense. And then Sunday, you'd be totally drained. And you'd worry about what you were going to come in with Monday. And I just thought about this when I was coming over here. This is true. 2 nights ago, I had a dream that I had been hired by Lauren to go back on SNL, and it was the first week, and I had no idea.
A high school dream.
Yeah.
I can't find my class.
I've never had those dreams. My dreams are, and I have this dream all the time, I'm working on SNL, and I can't come up with a sketch.
They call it post-traumatic stress
That's
disorder.
called SNL for the last 14 years.
I have a question on that. How many sketches would you say were presented, and how many each week, and how many actually make the show?
Okay, a minimum of 30 sketches were read at the table. I think that probably 40 to 45 were probably written, but they would throw a few out because they just knew they didn't want to do them. So about a packet of 30 to 40 sketches were read at the table. The producers would end up picking 10 that were staged, and then of course 1 or 2 would fall by the wayside after the dress rehearsal. So probably a live show has 8, 9 sketches in it. And back when I was there, we only had, one season we only had 8 writers. Now there's like 22, 24 writers on the show. The second season, I think there were maybe 11 of us.
Who were you writing for what season?
I was there in the mid-'80s. It was the last Eddie Murphy season, and then the Billy Crystal, Marty Short, Christopher Guest season. So it was very intense, and there was a lot of pressure to get material on. And the other thing people don't realize about SNL, unless you've read the books, is it looks like a party every Saturday night, and it kind of is. But to get to that place on Saturday night at 11:30 was a very depressing political place. The 17th floor was not a happy environment. The actors were all lobbying the writers to get into their sketches or to have the writers take a premise that the actors had and write it for them, and they were usually god-awful premises. Or they'd come around and, what are you working on? And they'd sit on your couch and you wanted to get them out of the room so you could do your job. And then there were other performers that didn't want to be in your sketches, and, they were your tools. You needed the performers to do your job. And, Harry Shearer, who we all think he's a wonderfully gifted man, but I got to tell you, a god-awful human being. He didn't want anybody writing for his characters. And when I was there, he did Reagan, and he did Mike Wallace, and he did all these other characters that you wanted to write for, and he wouldn't do anybody else's material. And I can tell you long stories that I don't want to take up the whole thing, but, so there was a lot of politics there. So, what you guys are trying to do is really hard, but if you do it well, it's also, I think, a really high level of television writing.
Suze, what about your time management and the hours?
I'm a terrible self-motivator. I do much better when I have structure and I have deadlines. So working in the Groundling Sunday Company, I was like a pig in shit because we had to write, 8 to 10 sketches a week. We were putting them up and they were dying on the vine or they were continuing through and we started over again. And I really loved that. I kind of got addicted to it. And then when that ended for me, that's when I took your class because I need a teacher. I need someone who expects that from me. And I thrive when it's expected of me. It's another adopted kid thing. Like I'm going to achieve like a son of a bitch if someone's expecting me. But if you don't expect me to show up, by God, I won't. So
That's true with latchkey kids.
Is it true? So when I don't have that structure, I'm more like a large whale shark who's just moving along, filtering krill, and I'll keep my notes, and something will hit me, and I'll write it here. So I learned to not be so precious about when I write and how I write, because I can do it here. I can do it this way. I always have the little voice recorder. I have notes. I have tons of things in my pocket. So that kind of works for me, but then nothing ever happens, which is why it's wonderful that the whole viral video thing came about, because it's like, well, shit, just, put it up on there. Find 2 people and put it up there and see what happens. So it's good for me in that respect. It's like, why not? Why not have that outlet for it? And I should do it more often. My other problem is that I'm not someone who can do it by myself that much. I want 2 or 3 other kids to come and play with me. It's just not that much fun. So if you find people like in this class that you really click with, keep in touch with them and just grab them and say, you remember that dumb idea we had at the coffee place? Let's just tape it today. You want to? And just do it.
Jeremy, you did that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just do it. Constantly.
Yeah, Jeremy
Constantly.
did a scene that we did on August 6th. You went to the park and
Yeah, sure.
and that's fantastic.
Just do it.
So, I want to just build on that thought about the networking in class. Before I was an instructor at UCLA, when I first came out to LA, I actually took classes at UCLA Extension. And people that were in my class with me went on to run The Simpsons and to run other shows. I guarantee you, in this class, someone here is going to be an executive producer of a television show.
Definitely.
At some point.
I know them. They will.
So, maybe a couple. So, network, get to know people. And the other thing is, when you're fortunate enough to get your first job, befriend the lowest level people there. The production assistants. I worked with production assistants that are now the showrunners on Family Guy, and people who have worked on, I can just name names of shows, that they were the people that were, typing our scripts for us and getting us coffee. Befriend these people, get to know these people, never be elitist about who's there. And
Be nice to everybody.
That's exactly what I was
I know that
about to
sounds
say.
silly,
Nice.
but
Come
I'm
on.
nice.
Yeah.
I just, that's how I was raised. Everybody's a human being. You don't know where they're coming from and what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So, be
Everybody's
nice to
job.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say seriously, 50% of jobs come down, at least in my experience, of people who want to work with you. If I only pride myself in one single thing, it's not like being a good writer, being a good actor. It's that the majority of people that I've worked with, they did something else, and there was something that I fit. I worked with them again, and that's because I make an effort to be nice, and I feel like you meet people on set all the time that do that, and you see it, and then you meet people that are the exact opposite, and you're just like, how are you working? Why would they hire you again? You're the devil. But it's be nice to everybody.
I know, unfortunately, some of the devilish people do get rewarded and get
They
working.
do.
So
For sure.
that's a shame, but.
I hire a lot of the same people all the time just because they're easy to work with and they're going to be amazing. Just easy.
Yeah.
Plus, look at Robin Williams. Everybody, all the stories. Oh, he was the nicest guy. It was nice. Nobody's like, what a dick.
Well, Kevin is the reason I got hired on.
Wait, she says,
Break.
what a dick, and then you immediately mean to me.
Kevin got me the job on Comedy Break because we had worked on Face the Music. You recommended me to Phil Hahn.
Oh, wow.
You got me that job.
Okay.
Thank you.
is you have to spend 12 hours with these people, you know, it's like who's gonna be easy, who do you like wanna hang out with for 12 hours, and are they gonna do a good job?
I have just a quick question for Tim, because Tim worked on Mad TV for how many years? Many?
Not bad, come on.
Couple years. And what was it like, to contrast what Kevin said about SNL? What was the gestalt of Mad
It's
TV
really
sketches?
competitive, it's highly competitive, people want to get their thing on, and I understand that. In short form, and we're dealing with a lot of that now in terms of what they're now calling content for the web, which is essentially sketch, it's sketch. And that doesn't change, the component parts of that don't change, it's just the pace is increasing, just a little faster. So what, on Mad and on Saturday Night Live, the same things are true. There's a certain, they want to keep the writers and the talent. There's a certain distance that a respectful distance that people like to have in production. But there's also, you do need to collaborate with somebody. So eventually, and if this happens when things are going well and people are in sync and when you're easy to work with, you'll find your people, you'll find your writers, you'll find your talent, and there'll be a mesh there, and it'll be the shorthand will develop. You know, everybody looks for that either in a relationship or on a film set or on a sketch show or in a play. You want rapport, and you want to be able to have. It's like that thing, absolutely, and then we're away. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that comes from having access to yourself, and also being. That's the thing with stand-up comedy and sketch comedy that I ran into when I was a kid. When I was on amateur nights doing stand-up, and then I was at Second City in my class, and when you're doing stand-up comedy, you're going for the joke. And in your Second City class, if you go for the joke, they'll beat you in the street. So, I'm at the, well, wait a minute, I like the joke. I love the low-hanging fruit. Who doesn't want to make, there's 5 laughs right in front of me, how come I can't have them? Because we're building a house here, and we're building a house where we can all live. So you have to add information rather than just going for the joke that doesn't mean anything. And once you understand that about sketch, and you can find some people that you want to build a house with, it makes it a lot easier. Those sketches get on easier. Because there's some element that there's an alchemy that's working. That's
a relationship,
yeah.
And there's a trust,
right.
And you're building something together.
And that's great to have over the course of a production, but when you're dealing with short form sketches like that, we're talking about packets of 30 and 40, again, getting whittled down to 10, yeah. You know what I mean? That's productivity, you know? And just on the productivity end of things, because with creatives, it's tough to implement a structure without people feeling that they're being constricted. It should be like lines down the road, help you get to where you want to go, rather than making it harder for you to get to where you. If there were no lines down the road, nobody would go anywhere. So the structures that you put in place for yourself, make sure they're just lines down the road rather than something that's keeping you fenced in. That would be.
That's great. That's great. Well, let's hit a couple of these questions from the kids.
Yay! Good for you guys.
There was one that I was looking for.
Just ask them to tell them.
Yeah.
What?
Questions?
Do you guys have any questions? You want me to read these? Oh, here, this is the question that I wanted. Then Archer, how do you and this is for anybody. This was germane to what we're talking about. How do you compartmentalize your writing, improv, and stand-up when you are a triple threat? How do you make that work? Anybody?
Well, I'll take this. I like to, no, it just depends on what's coming up that week. You know, that's how I'm gonna prioritize my week. I have a day planner, and it's like, okay, I'm doing the improv on Friday with Maria Bamford. I'm doing a story show on Sunday on Cabaret, so I gotta write a story at some point this week, and then it's just prioritizing that. And then also I recently stopped doing 7 shows a week. Like I thought I have to keep doing 7 shows a week all over town I gotta get good. then my friend just told me, I think you're good enough, like you've been doing this 15 years, why don't you just do the good shows? So that's been like, just to have a more full life, I've been consciously cutting back on shows.
Interesting.
And just doing the things I really want to do, and or things that pay well, or whatever, the good stuff. And yeah, and then just having more of a full life, because that's also part of being an artist and a stand-up and a writer, is bringing your full life to it.
That's a fantastic point. I was thinking about this. Around 1997 or so, I took a break from a bunch of things, and I didn't understand why, and it wasn't until years later that I realized why I needed to take a break. I had been so fortunate when I moved here and was very productive and worked a lot, and what ended up happening was my experiences were work-related experiences that the audience couldn't relate to. We could relate to them,
Right.
and they're funny to tell at the bar to the people that are in production and in shows, but I didn't have anything to bring to this.
You didn't
My
have life.
art wasn't imitating life, it was imitating art, and that's profoundly dull. It is a profoundly dull life to lead, and it's a profoundly dull thing to write about, and nobody cares. That's the other thing. So when I was able to take some time off, and I had stopped doing I did the Montreal Comedy Festival and then stopped doing stand-up comedy at all in '97. And I said, I'll take a year off and see how I feel, and it's continuing. So obviously, I was done. Obviously, I had topped out. So but it felt to me that I didn't have anything to say that warranted me going to, Minnesota for 3 days and doing it from Thursday to I just didn't have it, and I had enough going on in the other ends of the pool that I felt like I have to build this up again. I need to build something up to talk about. It felt like I was holding up old pictures of myself from high school, and I was 25, and or whatever, 30, and you're like, this doesn't feel right. I wasn't, and it was not. Saying you got to get a life sounds a little pejorative, because the experience I was having in my working life, they were good. They are life experiences, and the people I met, the shows I've done, the things that have happened to me because of that are seminal high points in my life. But if you want to be able to bring something more to this, though, then that's important. That's like really, really important, especially when you're getting.
Yeah,
getting older.
fall in love, have a baby,
Get divorced.
get divorced,
Yeah.
go on a trip.
Yeah.
Give the baby away.
Yeah.
Put the
Put
baby
up
up
for adoption. That seems to be the key.
Baby up.
Luke, how do you juggle all of your how do you keep all those plates spinning? You have about 20.
Well, it was good. It was good for me because like you've always heard that work kind of breeds work, and but when you're not working, you're just not working. And for me, it was like when I started kind of creating my own content, it felt like other work was coming in more. Like when you have something going on and you're doing something for some reason, whether it's other people seeing that or just whatever it is, that's when more people will call and like have you on their thing or whatnot. Like I always found when I'm doing stuff, that's when somebody's calling. I'm like, oh shit, I can't do that. But when I'm not doing anything, I'm not doing anything. And so like we will always have our projects that we're kind of producing that's always going on. It's always something. That's like our own thing. And the day and age we're in right now, like the young people that are coming up, like I'm 31 and I've seen it happen where like you have to do your own work. You have to like start creating your own content because the technology is there. It's so cheap, it's so easy, and there's so many people doing it that like the best thing I ever did was start like creating my own content. It was definitely the game changer in my world.
Fantastic. Arturo, what was your question?
Nothing specific, just what advice would you have for new writers, actors, filmmakers who are just trying to make it?
I would just continue on with like, if you can create your own content or find people that want to do something else because it's there. Like, so many things are out of your control, but now we live in a day and age where like you can make it happen. You can't guarantee success by any means, but like if somebody's a writer here and they have a great idea, if there's somebody else that for $500 you guys can like produce that thing. You know, if people are willing to give up their time and stuff, you can, you know, make stuff happen.
I actually made a whole web series about that question, and I asked, because I'm fascinated with biography TV and how people succeeded, and so I made this whole web series just asking successful people, you know, how did you become what you are, and what advice would you give other people? And it's like all these 3-minute videos, there's 20 episodes, it's called All Grows Up with a Z, All Grows Up with Melinda Hill. And it's like, what did you want to be when you grew up, you know, how did you get there, and what advice do you have? And a lot of great comedians gave great advice.
It's a great series. I'll email everybody's information. I just wanted to say as a coming attraction to next week, and Geraldine, you'll be back. Geraldine is a wonderful actress, and she was in our August 6th production. But, for example, when Jake videotapes next week, that collection of sketches, we could slap that sucker up on YouTube. I mean, it could, I make a joke that it's the Lights, Camera, Comedy Players, but we could, that DVD, with everyone's permission, August 6th was the dress rehearsal, and September 3rd could be the final. We could do that ourselves, just like that. We have that capacity. So it's why it starts with the material. It starts with what's on the page. Mindy, you don't want to write, you're an actress. What do you look for when you get a script? What's the first thing that you look for, that you want in that material?
Well, first of all, you want to see if it's interesting, if it tells an interesting story. If I'm looking at the part that I am considering, you know, is that something that I can do? Is it something that interests me? Is it something that challenges me? Is it something that I would have a great time with? You know, so you look to see, am I going to laugh out loud? And once again, who else is in it? Because that makes a huge difference. If they've, you know, I always ask, was there anybody else attached to it? You know, and then they start throwing out names, and of course, that's all in the preliminary, and then it comes down to it, and it's like, they were never attached to it. But I think you just have to look at all of that. Is this something I would be embarrassed to do? I mean, I've said no to stuff and go, oh my God, this is horrible. You know, and called my agent and went, did you read this? No, I haven't had a chance. Oh my God, this is horrible. I can't do this. This part is terrible. And it's like, all right, well, no problem. We'll just tell them, you know, that, yeah, don't tell them that I said it was horrible. Just say I'm busy. So, you know, I mean, I'm lucky that I can get to a place where I can, you know, some people would just go, and I do believe that I say yes to a lot of things because I think I want to work, but there's some things you just have to put your foot down and go, no, not for me. So I think it's, you know, you have to take a look at all of that kind of stuff. The writing is so important because you can have great people in something, and if the writing doesn't hold up, it just all looks silly. So, you know, when I read the first Austin Powers script, I laughed out loud. I don't usually laugh out loud when I'm reading a script, and that just made me laugh out loud. It was just so insanely silly. So, you know, things like that have to move you or do something to you, or you have to go, God, that's great. Oh my God, that's going to be really interesting. I want to see how they do that. So it does have to excite you somewhat.
Any other questions, Teddy?
How do you make peace with a sketch when you just can't seem to end it, and every possible ending just doesn't really feel? Yeah, I'm starting to you know, feel more empathy for them. Just having so many sketches to end, just being penned in.
Endings are the hardest, especially in sketch.
And they're important too.
Like
you want a good button of some
oh
sort.
My God.
Songs, you could just fade them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Well,
Good, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say sketches you can fade out too if you've got an applause sign, but that's not the best way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a good thing to do is look for a callback. Is there some information that you brought up that
Totally
you
agree
can
with
call back? I do that in stand-up all the time. And the more you do it in stand-up, the more applause you get, and people get really excited about it. Also though, when I was writing sketches, I had a very hard time with endings, and I would sometimes just end them. And a lot of my stand-up is that way now, and my stuff that I write is just kind of seems truncated, but I love just leaving it unresolved, and that's kind of become my style now. But I was also gonna say, for the endings, sometimes you can run it by your friend, like if you have a funny friend who you trust, not just any friend, but like your funny friend who you trust, and they'll be like, oh, like, I do that with my friend Maria, sometimes, or Drew, like I'll run something back and I'll have an ending. I don't know if
This
it's
one-
cheating.
No, I was going to say, this won't necessarily answer your question, but when my second week at Saturday Night Live, I wrote a sketch about a Spanish teacher. Rhea Perlman did it. And,
People think I look like her.
no, you're much prettier.
No.
Seriously, do I?
No, you're a babe.
Thank you.
Not
Just wanted to
that
throw
there's
that
anything
out.
wrong with Rhea.
She's a babe, but you're a super
Yes.
babe.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, go ahead.
But anyways, I forget what the ending was, but we did it in dress, and it wasn't working. And between dress and air, someone came up, one of the writers on staff, and said, well, we got a pitch of a new ending from one of the camera guys.
That's great.
And they pitched it, and it was the most hackneyed callback, nothing wrong with callbacks, but a bad callback. And I was really offended that they took the camera guy's joke and wanted to end my sketch on it, and goddamn it killed.
Of course.
You know?
Wow.
So that's all.
That's funny.
That's good.
Here's a question from one of the kids, for anybody. Have you ever made something or wrote something that hasn't seen the light of day? Is there any reason not to put all of your stuff online?
Yes, there is a reason to not do
Yeah.
that. Because things online can live forever.
Yeah.
Once you decide you want to take it down, the internet may not agree, and it may be stuck out there. But I think I'm all about create your own content and make your own stuff and get your voice out there, and why are you the person to tell this story? What has happened to you uniquely that you can share with the world? What's your voice? All that stuff. But, you don't want to, I think quality, not quantity.
I totally agree with that.
How do you want to represent yourself? What if people only have a chance to watch one of your
And I've seen it firsthand, and this is tough for me in the world of like new media and stuff, is that I totally understand the opposite way, and I see it working and I see it making money, is that I've got like a really good friend who's a huge YouTuber. I mean, like one of those people that has 2 million plus followers and whatnot, and she puts stuff out at least 3 days a week. And to be honest, it's 99% of it is terrible. I mean, it's like our friends and I, we watch it, and she acknowledges it. She acknowledges that it's really bad, but she makes a great living from it, and she keeps going, and she makes her living just doing that and whatnot. Now, my opposite argument with that would be that there's been 3 different times that we've had a project that we were going to do. Twice it was like a Funny or Die bit, and once it was kind of this short film horror thing. And every time I was like, we should use her, she's crazy talented, she's got a huge fan base, she'll be great for the project, she's perfect. And all 3 times, whoever the director was like, sure, show me something. And every time I was like, desperately trying to find something that like worked, and all they could not see past her YouTube channel, because you Google her and it's just like 1,000 videos.
Yeah, really did.
And it like
Backfired.
and so I'm a firm believer that like quality over quantity, but you do have to keep putting stuff out there.
And I will say, I think we're coming up to sort of a subprime mortgage bubble with
Yeah.
online content. Like a mother in Peoria and her kid singing Chicken Wing, Chicken Wing is going to be famous for 7 minutes, and someone at McCann Erickson is going to go after that video on YouTube and pay her $15,000 for that thing, and then they're going to say, what do you have next? And she's going to say,
I got nothing.
I don't have anything. And the same is going to be true for for some of us, it used to be like if you had a hit, okay, where are your next 3 feature film scripts? What are your next 3 projects, and how well developed are they? And we all have them really well developed. Now with these Viners, like this cute kid in Illinois who has this funny little Vine thing, they fly him out here and they say, so what do you want to do next? Same thing. They're like, oh. So you guys are already doing the right thing. You're learning structure. You're learning the rules before you break them, and you should also be looking at your comedy elders. If you don't know who Contemplace is, if you don't know who Ernie Kovacs is, if you don't know who Moms Mabley is, Ruth Buzzy, if you don't know who these people are, you have to go and search them out, because that is the basis on which all comedy is built. So know that, because you guys are all young and everything is like what's new and what's fresh, and everyone knows Louis C.K. and everybody knows, you know, all these, and absolutely study them as well, because they're fantastic, but go back into the history, because that's the mana. That's like,
That's so
the
great,
core
Suze.
thing.
They've been watching Nichols and May,
Yeah.
and Caesar,
Fantastic. And you're gonna be
Monty
way,
Python, and
yes.
The
Carol
sub-mortgage thing is the
Monty
best.
Python, watch that if you want to see how to end a sketch.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
two, that's master.
Yeah.
Chop off some
Finite animator.
limbs.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just do it.
Yeah, but it is, that bubble's gonna burst, so.
So we have to wind down, and I have to start singing.
But he's got a question. Come on.
I know, that's what I'm leading to. What's our last question, Stephen?
Uh-oh.
Before I have to sing, I'm so glad we had this time together.
Like, listening to other people. I'm just wondering how people who are involved in improv, how that sort of fed into either comedy writing or scripted acting, and like what are the differences and the challenges of like working within those two sort of formats and ways of thinking about creativity.
I mean, I love I think some of the best things that I've been involved with that have been written, we've improvised it first. Or improvise it, talk and do characters, and we do the scenes, and then we base and write stuff off of that. That's, to me, the most fun. That's why I don't mind writing with someone, I just don't want to write alone.
Yeah.
So, and having that element of, well, let's just, you know, here, we're at the car wash, and so your mother says to you, blah, 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 and so we just, you know, kind of play. So to me, that's easier to write or get, you know, the beats down than, oh my God, so then she says, I'm not really good at that part. So for me, the improv element helps putting that thing down or getting that idea, or even, you know, in writing, you know, coming up with the ending of something, you know, just throw a bunch of ideas out. It's kind of like this thing called New Choice, where, you know, and so a car hits him, new choice. So he gets on a plane and goes to visit his mother, new choice. He takes off his wig and says, you know, I'm bald, new choice. And so doing all of that kind of stuff sometimes helps to get something out. Yes.
I love improv because what I learned from improvising at the Groundlings was don't think, and whatever's in your mind is enough to make people laugh. And so that helps me in all of my writing, because I do vomit drafts first of everything, where I just vomit anything out that I can think of. It's literally like a giant New Choice draft. And it doesn't have to be good at all. In fact, it can be bad. And I give myself that permission to just write it, and then psychologically I have one draft done, and that feels amazing. And then I go in and start to carve out an actual draft. And that is a lot easier than it even sounds, because there's actually a lot of great stuff that comes out of that vomit draft and improv. And on set, we always do a scripted take and an improvised take, or a few of each. And we always get like great comedians who are, a lot of their improv we keep. But I do always do the scripted takes now, because when it goes too off the rails from the written structure, it's a mess. And also, we're writers, we're comedy writers, so we love a lot of the words, and we want to hear them said in the thing. So now we do the scripted, and then we let, you know, the brilliant improvisers come in. But it all comes from that improvised vomit draft of gold.
When I was at Second City, when I was training, and I didn't graduate from there, but I got a lot of the information. It was really important to me because I revered Bill Murray almost obsessively as a kid. So I knew that that's where he got his training from. And one of the things that I learned, and this was a big thing at Second City, is always work at the top of your intelligence, which I always thought, to improvise at the top of your intelligence. Don't worry, oh Jesus, everybody gonna get this. They're gonna get it, trust me, they're gonna go with you. Just go with it, and you know, and so you have to be able to know how to do that. You have to be, in comedy, you have to be able to know how to improvise. Even if you know the nuts and bolts of your tightly scripted thing, you gotta be able to emotionally improvise within the structure of those words. So improvisation is really important. Improvisation, when you were talking about writing, having it's easier for that. That is writing. If you improvise until there's nowhere else to go, and then go back and use your writing gifts to refine it and get to it quicker and more believably and more authentically. The great thing about improvisation that is fun to watch and exciting for us all to perform and for people to watch is that it's unsafe. It's you know what I mean? And sometimes when it's scripted, it can feel a little bit safe. So how do we keep the dangerousness of putting ourselves out there while still keeping that structure and keeping those lines down the road? That's the challenge. That's the challenge. And you know, that's the challenge of your working life.
And to build one more thought on improvisation, this is more for the actors out there. You know, improvising doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're changing the words. Improvising is also how you deliver the written lines.
Emotional improvising.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, I've never done a film, but what I've read about the great actors, De Niro and everything else, they give so many different interpretations of the same line that they've got great choices in the editing room. So don't just think about improvising as changing the lines. Think about it as interpreting that work differently each time.
Changing your state, changing your relationship to the other person, changing that which is specific to you, and allowing it to affect you.
I will also say that a lot of jobs I've gotten are because I improvised or wrote in funny little tags to already great written scripts, or added stuff to the beginning or somewhere in the middle. Because a lot of actors are going to go in and they're going to nail it, but that's going to make you stand out.
Give them more jokes give them more laughs than they gave you jokes, and they'll feel like they made money.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
If there are 5 jokes on the page, give them 7.
The actors that I always loved writing for took the material and made it funnier. Most actors, you see it in your head at 100%, and you only see 80 when it's on the stage. But the really great ones bring it up another level.
And you don't have to add anything to get those laughs either. That could be how you handled the pause, or how you handled that relationship with that person. You know what I mean? Those are the moments, and those are the moments you remember.
And that supports what we've talked about in class, where you will get hired when you make your bosses feel smart for hiring you. You get the job when you elevate the material, and
you'll get the job when you make the guy who wrote it and heard it 40 times that day fall out of his chair like it's the first time.
Exactly.
And also, it's like whatever you can bring to it that's uniquely you. Like, you don't try to be perfect ever. Just embrace your imperfections, because you're bringing something that they're like, oh my god, I never thought of that. You know, an essence that that people want. You know.
Easy to say when you're super cute. You're bracing your imperfections, are you?
So when you're working on your sketches for next week, remember to respect your white and leave air around the lines. So Geraldine and the other actors can have some room to move and improvise and interpret and play with the words on the page. We've been working on don't direct.
In the writing?
Yeah. No slug lines.
Yeah.
No slug lines.
Nobody likes that.
No parentheticals.
Yep.
No slug lines. Just the words that matter. Don't direct.
Yep.
Anything else? We're gonna get kicked out of here. My heart is full. I love you all so much. You are the moon, the sun, the stars, and all the best planets.
And we love you.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. It's just, I hope you all, I'm going to make them for homework. I'm going to write things, you know.
But funny. know.
Yes.
Come on, give it a little thought,
And
come on.
their grades are involved.
Oh, good. Ah.
And, but I thank you all so much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for having me.
Coming.